As human beings, we have 6 needs, and one of those is growth. And there will always be a part of us that wants to improve, that wants to evolve, and that wants to transform ourselves. And that's a beautiful thing. This burning desire to be better than we currently are is the thing that motivates us to grow and to move forward and to take action so that we can get better results in our lives. Now, the problem comes that when we start against this, when we set out on the path to change, we face certain challenges and certain obstacles. And those obstacles are in our own brain, and they are there because of programming that is thousands and thousands of years old. And this programming that is now outdated is the thing that has helped us survive up until this point. However, for us to get to the next level of our own evolution, we have to actually overcome this. So that is why it's so challenging. So today I'm going to talk about the 4 main obstacles when facing change and when wanting to improve ourselves, and what we need to do to overcome them so that we can get the results in our life. So the first one is called the Motivational Triad. And we have this impulse to survive, and we do that through 3 main motivations. The first one is the pursuit of pleasure. Now, if sex wasn't pleasurable, and if eating wasn't pleasurable, and if being protected in shelter wasn't pleasurable, we would not have that impulse to go seek it, and then we would have not survived as a human species. Nowadays, that same pursuit of pleasure is actually the problem. Because we always want to feel good, we seek these false sensory pleasures. We seek it in eating foods that aren't good for us, or we seek it in drinking too much alcohol, or doing drugs, or we do it in overspending and shopping and retail therapy. Or we do it through our addictive phones and technology and gadgets and computers and internet. And those pleasures, they create this dopamine hit in our brains. And our brains, that feeling of pleasure is something that our brains are saying, I want that, do more of that. So we get addicted to this dopamine hit. And the problem with these things that we're consuming that is creating this feeling of pleasure is that there's such concentrated substances like sugar, processed foods, and flour foods, is that our brains have not evolved to deal with that amount of intense pleasure. So we get this huge rush, and then we become so addicted that we need more and more and more of it. And so our lives become this seeking of feeling physically good through those artificial and false pleasures. Now that's one. Number 2 is the avoidance of pain. Now again, if hunger wasn't painful, then we would not have had the motivation to go find food. Or if being frozen to death or rained on wasn't uncomfortable or painful, we wouldn't have this motivation to create shelter. So nowadays, shelter is not a problem. Food is readily available. But the pain that we experience now is the pain of uncomfortable emotions. And because of this motivation to run away and avoid that pain, we numb those emotions through a lot of that pleasure seeking. And we basically overeat, overspend, overdrink, over Facebook so that we don't need to experience emotional pain. So we run away from pain, and then we use up a lot of energy doing those things and seeking those pleasures. The third part of the motivational triad is conserving energy. Now, our bodies and our brains like to be efficient. And again, when survival was difficult, we had to expend a lot of energy to go find our food and to create shelter and to survive on a daily basis. Nowadays, life is so easy. And in fact, it's like ridiculously easy. We could just literally sit on the couch all day long, not do anything, and have everything brought to us and get through our days that way. Now, of course, if you're watching this, I'm assuming you don't do that. Most of us don't do that because we have this impulse to want to move forward in our life. However, we still have that want to conserve energy. So we want to exert the least amount of effort possible to move forward in our lives. So in order for us to get to this next phase of our own evolution, we have to take this motivational triad and we need to literally flip it upside down. We need to do the complete opposite of what our primal brain has evolved to do, because that programming is outdated. It no longer makes sense for where we are and where we want to go. So instead of seeking pleasure, we need to be able to delay gratification. Instead of avoiding pain, we need to be okay with some discomfort. We need to actually learn to be comfortable with discomfort and not run away from that, because some discomfort is a part of life. And we need to not be so worried about conserving energy, and instead we need to be willing to challenge ourselves and do hard things sometimes, because hard things are often what is required for us to make the changes and grow. So that is challenge number 1, and that's what we need to do to overcome the motivational triad, is delay gratification, to seek discomfort, because discomfort is a necessary part of our growth, and be willing to challenge ourselves and do hard things. Now, the second part of this impulse to survive that's actually getting in the way of us really evolving is past focused. Now, because our brains like to be efficient, our brains like to just recycle the same thoughts over and over and over again. So the thoughts you are thinking today are 99% of them the same thoughts that you thought yesterday, and the same thoughts you thought the day before, and the day before, and the day before. Now, your thoughts create your feelings, and your feelings create your actions, and your actions determine your results. Now, if you keep thinking the same thoughts day after day after day, you will keep recreating the same results in your life over and over and over again. Now, if you don't like your current results or you want different results, you have to start thinking new things. So instead of being past focused, where you just keep doing the same things over and over again, you need to move into being future focused. Now, what's amazing is that as we evolved as human beings, we have this part of our brain that is unique to being human, and it's called the prefrontal cortex. And we still have this primal brain, but now we also have the prefrontal cortex. And that part of our brain is future focused. That part of our brain can see a new reality. It is logical. It can see that, okay, if I want different results, I need to do X, Y, and Z to get there. And it all makes sense in our brain, and we can make a plan, we can put a to-do list in our calendar, but we have our primal programming to contend with. And our primal programming wants to avoid the discomfort that comes with doing things that we need to do. It wants to seek instant gratification and just feel good in the moment. And it wants to conserve energy. It wants to exert the least amount of effort possible. So in order to become future focused, we have to literally train our brains to not keep thinking thoughts that we've thought before, thoughts that actually don't serve us, thoughts like, oh, that's not possible for me. Oh, I can't do that because I've never done that before. Oh, I've failed in the past so many times, I won't be able to do it because I'll just do what I've always done. That thinking is optional and it's not serving your growth. So thinking new things means retraining your brain. And this is a skill and an art, and it takes practice. But if you want a different future, if you want to create something you've never created before, if you want new results in your life, then you need to become future-oriented instead of being past-focused. So that's the second challenge. The third challenge is we have a negativity bias. Now, we evolved looking out for problems. We survived because we had to see what are potential threats. Is there a tiger nearby? Is there enough food so that we can all have enough to eat? Nowadays, again, survival is pretty easy. Unless you're going to walk out into incoming traffic, then the chances of surviving the day is pretty high. So we still have this tendency in our brain to look for what's wrong and look for the negative and look for potential problems and threats in our environment. Now, this keeps us in a lot of negative thinking loops that, again, don't serve us, that keeps us past focused. So we need to retrain our brains to become more growth-oriented, create a more growth mindset, and have more of a positivity focus. So instead of looking at what's wrong all the time, what are the problems, we look at what's right. How is what's happening right now serving me? What is good about this situation? And what am I grateful for? And this is why a gratitude practice is so powerful, because instead of looking for what's bad, we look for what's good, and you will always find what you are looking for. But again, this takes practice. This takes literally reprogramming our brains. Now, the fourth challenge that we need to overcome to really get past our outdated programs so that we can evolve to the next level of ourselves is our desire for drama. When hundreds of years ago, the line between survival and living was a very fine line. Nowadays, again, it's easy. It's easy to survive. It's easy to get through the day. Not a problem, not a challenge, not an issue. Our brains, like life used to be really dramatic. It's like, oh my gosh, there's a threat, there's a tiger, there's not enough food. How are we gonna survive the day? Now, because our lives are pretty much mellow comparatively and way less dramatic, we still have that urge for drama. So we create so much drama in our lives. We over dramatize everything. We make everything such a big deal. We don't let things go because it's like we gotta make it something big and meaningful. And often we make things that are small and insignificant and really silly into bigger things. And this is really what's it's stealing so much of our mental energy and mental time and mental focus on these things that are really not that important. Like, what am I going to eat later on today? Or should I have this candy bar or should I not have this candy bar? Or, we obsess about these things that in the grand scheme of things at your deathbed are really not important. So, what to do? We need to become future focused and get clear on what do we really want with our lives? What is truly important? What do I want to create? Who do I want to become? And then we need to train our brains to be aligned and think in a way that is aligned with who we want to become. We need to be okay with uncomfortable emotions and learn to process them all the way through so that we are not numbing them and escaping them through false pleasures like eating and drinking and procrastinating and Facebooking or spending, all these bad habits that wreak havoc in our lives and create negative results. So when you learn how to process your emotions all the way through so you don't need to escape that pain of them, you free up desire and energy for things that are truly important. And then when you are clear about what you really want, who do you want to become, what are the things that you want to put your energy and effort and desire into, and then start to train your brain and start to train your thinking to go out and get those things and do the necessary work and put in the effort that's required and be okay to delay gratification temporarily for the long-term goals, your life will transform. This is powerful stuff, and although change is hard, it is an uphill battle, it is worth every step of the way because you have one life, and this life is so precious, and life will pass you by. Time is running out for you to become the person you're meant to be. So I hope that this was helpful. I hope you understand that a lot of the ways that we self-sabotage is basically that old programming that's still running the show. And it doesn't have to be the case. Our brains are malleable and plastic, and neuroplasticity is the science of being able to literally change our brains, reprogram that old wiring, and start to think differently and act differently so that we can get different results. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I hope this was helpful, and I'll talk to you soon.